Good morning, Year 5. Welcome back to another maths lesson with me. So again, we're going to start with our flashback 4 questions. So please pause the video and answer these 5 questions, including the bonus questions in your maths book for me, please. Okay, well done everyone. Let's have a look at the answers together. What is the difference between 5,874 and 4,026? So what you should have done here is subtracted 4,026 from 5,874 to find the difference. And the difference is 1,848. Question 2. What is 47 times 32? So you could have used your column method and remembered your magic 0 to get the answer 1,504. Question 3, fill in the missing number to 36 divided by something equals 4. And if we think about our 4 times table and what we multiply to get 36, our answer is 9. Question 4, what is 100 more than 28,409? So to find the answer, you should have added 100 to get 28,509. Okay, now on to our bonus question. What time is it and can you say it in another way? So our little hand here is in between the 5 and the 6, and our big hand here is on the 42nd minute, okay? Because our 6 represents half an hour, 35, 40 and 42. So the time is 5:42. We can say 42 minutes past 5, or we could say 18 minutes to 6. And if you've thought of any other ways to say this time, that's fine as well. So like always, pause the video and mark your answers in a different coloured pen, giving yourself a tick or a dot and having a look at where you went wrong if you made any mistakes. Okay, now we're going to start our third lesson on position and direction. And before we begin, could you please pause the video and write the date in the yellow in your maths book? So the date is the 3rd of the 2nd, 21, and the yellow is to plot points in the first quadrant of a graph. And remember, we looked at the word quadrant in our vocabulary before, which means 1/4 of a graph, which we're looking at in year 5. Okay, thanks for doing that. Hopefully it's nice and neat and underlined, and if it isn't, then just double check. And now we can start our starter. So I've got a bit of a riddle for you, and I want you to complete the sentence with these phrases. So we've got a plot, but a coordinate, and you need to fill these gaps in with either is fixed or can move. So pause the video and complete this sentence in your maths book with the correct phrases, thinking about your knowledge of coordinates and plots on a graph. So pause the video to do that now. Okay, so the correct answer is that a plot can move, but a coordinate is fixed. So if you think about our graphs, we can put plots in different places, but whenever we read a coordinate of a plot, that is fixed, that cannot be changed. Okay, so well done if you got that correct. And if you didn't, have a little think about the meaning of our correct sentence. Okay, and now we're going on to our review phase. So thinking about what we've learned already about coordinates and different plots on a graph, I've got the question for you, can coordinates have a 0 in? So pause the video if you need to and have a little think. Some of you might know, some of you might need to think a bit longer about this. And once you think you know, we'll have a look together. Okay, so the answer is yes, a coordinate can have a 0 in. And an example of one is this plot on the screen here. But now we know that coordinates can have a 0 in, I want you to think about whether this coordinate is written as 0, 4 or 4, 0. So it's a bit of a misconception during this unit. We need to think about, is the 0 on the x-axis or the y-axis? And which one is the correct coordinates? So pause the video to have a little look at that plot on our graph. Okay, so our correct coordinates for this plot, this point on our graph, is 0, 4, not 4, 0. And the reason it's 0, 4 is because our x-axis comes first and then our y-axis. So if our plot is on the 4 on the y-axis, we know that our x-axis must be the 0. So I can go along to my 0 and up to my 4. If our plot was 4, 0, we would go along to the 4 and stay here because it's on the 0. Okay, so our correct coordinates for this plot here is 0, 4. So well done if you got that correct. And if you didn't, have a little think about why that was. Okay, moving on. So I've got a question for you for our step 1 input. And that question is, what are the coordinates of A, B, C and D on our graph here? So what I'd like you to do is pause the video and make a note in your book so you can say A equals and then the coordinates and so on. Okay, so pause the video to have a go at that now for me. Okay, I've now got the correct coordinates on the screen for you now. So please mark these in your book if you got them correct. And if you got these numbers the wrong way round, then that's because you didn't do the x-axis first. So just make sure when you find coordinates, you make note of the x-axis and then the y-axis. So pause the video to mark your answers. Okay, now I've got another question for you about the same coordinates. So my question is, which coordinates have the same x-axis? So think about where the x-axis comes in the coordinates and which coordinates have the same x-axis. You can either look at the graph or you can look at our coordinates here. So pause the video and have a little think about that, and then I'll model how we know which coordinates have the same x-axis. Okay, so I've put the answers on the screen now, which is that A and C have the same x-axis of 2, and B and D have the same x-axis as 6. So we can either know this by looking at the graph or our coordinates. So if we look at our coordinates here, and if we know that our x-axis comes first, we can see which ones have the same x-axis. So you can see that A and C have 2, which is the same, and B and D have 6, which is the same. And we can also see that on our graph, if we look at our x-axis, D and B are in line with the 6, so they'll have the same, and C and A are in line with the 2, so they'll have the same x-axis as well. So well done if you got that correct, and if not, then I hope this helped you know how we compare x-axes, if that's a word. Okay, so this time I want you to think about the y-axis. And now that I've modelled how we find and compare the x-axis of the same coordinates, I want you to think about which coordinates have the same y-axis. So remember that the y-axis is the second number, and you can also look at this part of the graph and see which are in line. Okay, so pause the video to have a go at the y-axis comparison. Okay, so I've now put the answer on the screen, which is that A and B have the same y-axis of the number 6. So we can either look at all our coordinates and compare the y-axis and see which have the same. So you can see A and B have the same number of 6, or we can look at our graph and look at the y-axis numbers and the plots. So you can see that A and B are on the same y-axis, so they are the same, but D and C are on different ones, so they're not the same. So well done if you got that correct. Okay, so on the screen now I have the step 1 questions for you to complete in your maths book. So you need to look at the point A and think about who is correct about their coordinates. Okay, and for 1B, here is your question. So you need to identify the coordinates of the points A to H, and then think about which ones have the same x coordinate and which ones have the same y coordinate. So pause the video to do that now. Okay, now we're going to move on to the step 2 input, which is looking at the coordinates of vertices of a shape. So you might have seen this done in our last lesson, but now we're going to look at it in more depth. So what I want you to do is watch me model it once, and then you will have a go at practicing it on your own. Okay, what we mean by find the coordinates of a vertices of a shape is find the coordinates of each point where the edges meet on the shape. So the 4 vertices here of this rectangle. So I'm going to start with the bottom left one. And I'm going to start by starting from my 0, going along my x-axis and seeing what number is in line with my vertex. So I'm going to go along, and I can see that number 2 is in line with my vertex. And then I'm going to go up from 2 to my y-axis, and I can see that the number 5 is in line with my vertex as well. So my coordinates will therefore be 2, 5, because my x-axis comes first. Now I'm going to do my top left vertex. So again, I'm going to start at my 0, go along my x-axis and see where that point meets. So I'm going to go along. Okay, and now I can see again that my vertex is in line with the 2 on the x-axis. And to find the y-axis, I need to go up to see what it's in line with, which is 8. So my coordinates will be 2, 8. And as you can see here, these 2 vertices have the same x-axis because they're on the same line. Okay, let's have a look at our bottom right vertex. So I'm going to go along my x-axis from my 0 and see what my point is in line with. Okay, so I'm going along. I'm going to stop at the 7 because my vertex is in line with the 7 on the x-axis. And now I need to go up from my 7 to see what it's in line with on the y-axis. So I'm going to go up and stop at the 5 because it's in line with the 5. So thinking about our coordinates, my 7 will come first and then my 5. And I know that's correct because these 2 vertices have the same y-axis of 5 because they're on the same line on the graph. Okay, and lastly, I need to find the vertex of my top right corner, my top right vertex. So I'm going to start on my 0 again and go along my x-axis to see what number it's in line with, which is the number 7. And then I'm going to go up to the vertex to see what it's in line with on the y-axis, which is the number 8. So my coordinates will be 7, 8. So now I've got all 4 coordinates for my 4 vertices on my shape, and that is how we find the coordinates of vertices on a shape. Okay, so I'm now going to give you the chance to pause the video and find the 4 vertices coordinates of this square on the grid. So pause the video to identify the coordinates of each vertex of the square. Okay, pause the video to see if you got the answer correct. So you should have 3, 4, 7, 4, 3, 8 and 7, 8. So pause the video and have a little look if you got those correct, and if you didn't, have a look at where you went wrong. Remember that we start on our x-axis and then go up to our y-axis to find our coordinates. Okay, now I have a different problem for you to solve. So I've got my 2 points on my graph here, and my question is, if each plot moves 1 space to the left, so remember our left is this way, what would the new coordinates be? Okay, so pause the video, have a little think about that. You could use your finger to maybe point where the new plot would be and have a look at the new coordinates of that. Okay, so the way we solve this problem is to start at our plot and follow the instructions given. So we've been asked to move 1 space to the left. So I'm going to get my plot, I'll move it 1 space to the left, and I'm going to do it in a different colour to show that it's been moved. And I'm going to do the same with this plot here. So I'm going to move 1 space to the left and place my plot on the graph. And now I need to think about what my new coordinates are. So looking at my purple plot, I need to identify the coordinates of these new plots. So as always, I'm going to start on my 0 and go along my x-axis, and I'm going to focus on this one first. and I'm going to stop at the number it's in line with, which is the number 3. And now I need to look at my y-axis, so I'm going to go up and see what number the plot is in line with, which is 7. So my coordinates for this plot here will be 3, 7, and that is my new coordinate. And now I'm going to look at my next one. So I'm going to go along from my 0 and stop with the number it's in line with, which is 6. And now I need to go up my y-axis and see what number it's in line with, which is 3. So my coordinates will be 6, 3, and that is my new coordinate for this plot. And one way we could check that this is definitely one place to the left is to look at the coordinates of our original plot. So I'm going to look at my blue plots this time. I'm going to go along from my 0 along my x-axis and stop at the number it's in line with, which is 4. And I'm going to go up the y-axis and it's in line with 7. So it was originally 4, 7. We've moved it one place to the left and said it's now 3, 7. So we know that is correct. And now let's check our next one. So I'm going to go along from 0, along my x-axis, stop at 7 because it's in line with 7, go up to my blue plot, and I can see it's in line with the 3. So the original coordinates were 7, 3. We've moved it one place to the left to make it 6, 3. So we know that's correct because 7 minus 1 is 6. So well done if you had a little go at that in your head and got it correct. And if not, just have a look at what we've done and how we follow instructions to make some new coordinates. Okay, here is the step 2 of the worksheet, which looks at finding the coordinates of vertices or vertices of a triangle. So you've got L, M and N that you need to identify. And now you've got 2B, which follows what we did before. So you're moving each plot 2 spaces to the left and identifying the new coordinates of each point. So in your book, you could write A equals and then explain your reasoning. Okay, and lastly, on to our step 3 input. So this time I want you to think about which are the correct coordinates for this plot. Is it 6, 4 or 3, 2? So this time it's not about the order of the X and the Y axis, it's about something else. And what I want you to do is pause the video and think about which are the correct coordinates by looking at this grid here. Okay? So pause the video and have a little go at that now. Okay, so the key part of this problem is looking at the scale. So if we have 5 squares and the end of our scale is 10, each one cannot be 1. So each line is 2. So it goes 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and the same on the y-axis. So therefore, our correct plot is 6, 4, because this goes 2, 4, 6, and our x-axis coordinate is 6, and then 2, 4, and our y-axis coordinate is 4. Okay, so you really need to look at the scale of the graph because it can trick you out into getting the wrong coordinates. So well done if you noticed that and got it correct. If not, have a little closer look at the scale, okay? Okay, now I've got the step 3 questions for you on the screen, which focuses on some similar questions as the one we've just looked at. And for those of you that fancy a challenge, here is the extension part of the worksheet. Okay, big well done everyone for completing your independent work for your 3rd lesson on this unit. On the screen now I have the step 1 answers, so you need to pause the video to mark your work in a different coloured pen if you have one. On the screen now I have the step 2 answers, so pause the video to mark your work. On the screen now I have the step 3 answers, so pause the video to mark your work in a different coloured pen. And on the screen now I have the extension answer as well, so pause the video if you did the extension in your books. And once you've finished doing all your marking, could you please write a learning comment in your book so I know how you got on with this lesson? Okay? Okay, well done Year 5 for all your hard work today. I know it's tricky thinking about the X and the Y axis, but you've all done great, I'm sure. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again soon for another math lesson. Have a lovely rest of your day. Bye. That's my dog.